for separation.
All right, then. I'll activate the computer link, feed in the various ethnic and national factors.
Batman, wait a minute.
What?
Well, with the way the world is and all, don't you think maybe we ought to try to improve those factors? Kind of reshuffle them a little?
No, Robin. No. It's not for mortals like us to tamper with the laws of nature. Indeed, in this very Batcave, you saw a ghastly example of what happens when one tries to do that.
Gosh, yes, Batman. When you put it that way.
Here we go.
Welcome to Superhero Cinephiles Podcast. I am half of your host, Perry Constantine.
Derek Ferguson.
How you doing today, Derek?
I am doing fine. This is our 25th episode, right?
25 episodes, yeah.
How does it feel to be 25?
It feels, I wish I was still 25 in real life. I had a class last night, and one of my students in this class, she's an older woman, and she was telling me, she's like, oh, we celebrated, did class asked how their weekend was. Said, oh yeah, we celebrated my daughter's birthday. She turned 35 this last weekend. And I said, oh, that's nice. That's wow, I'm gonna be 37 now. She's younger than me. And then the first thing my student asked, she's like, really, are you single?
Oh, wow, really?
Yeah, and I'm like, no, but thank you.
Yeah, right, cool, yeah. Oh, listen, thank you for thinking of me.
And then it's like, whoa, wait, hold on a second. What's your daughter look like? No. But, man, so how are you doing with everything that's been going on out there? It seems like in the past week since we did our last episode, America has, decided to just, catch on fire.
Yeah, it's, there is nothing left, and that's something I really shouldn't say that, because every time I say that, something else happens.
Don't even go there. I
mean, what is left to happen in 2020? Alien invasion, the rapture, zombie apocalypse, because every time you turn around, it's just, forget about the pandemic. Nobody's talked about COVID in like a week.
Yeah.
Everybody, seemingly everybody has forgotten there was a pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
That's going out the window. And, it's been pretty wild here. As I was saying earlier, as I was telling you earlier, and as I was telling my good friend Dave Congalton, who has a radio show out in California, he actually invited me to be a guest on his radio program, to talk about what was going on here in Brooklyn. And it's been pretty wild. Patricia and I have driven around during the daytime, and there's a lot of graffiti. Mm-hmm. A lot of stores have been broken into. There's a lot of that going on. There's two distinct elements. There's the legitimate protesters, mm-hmm. who are out generally during the daytime and who are peaceful and who are calm, and then you have the looters who come out at night.
Right.
And they even tore up Macy's down on 34th Street. I
saw something about that.
Yeah.
Well, there's also apparently a third group, and these are these outside instigators who are trying to start the second civil war with this.
Yeah. Well, from what I understand is that you can go on Craigslist. They advertise for these people on Craigslist, and they drive them to wherever the protests are, and their only purpose is to cause anarchy. And yeah, like you said, their purpose is pretty much to start another civil war.
Yeah. Did you see the guy out of Salt Lake who took out a friggin' bow and arrow?
Oh, they stomped his ass. I heard.
Yeah. I don't blame them. The guy's taking out a bow and arrow and he's ready to shoot people. So what do you expect them to do?
Yeah, really. Did you really think a bow and arrow was going to intimidate? Unless you're Green Arrow, mm-hmm. you taking out a bow and arrow pretty much is not going to scare me all that much. Really.
I guarantee you that guy thought in that moment that he looked just like Daryl from The Walking Dead.
Oh yeah, I'm pretty sure he did.
Meanwhile, I wrote on Facebook he looks more like the guy who ate Daryl.
But things. It's weird. Because you and I have grown up watching all kinds of dystopian scenarios, mm-hmm. in movies and on TV, and to actually be living one, because I swear to God, this is, I said, now I don't know if this is a David Lynch movie or if this is James Cameron movie or, I'm trying to figure out what kind of movie I'm living in right now,
Yeah, it's also because it's so asinine, so much of the stuff that's going on.
And you know what? A lot of this stuff didn't have to happen.
No.
It really didn't. A lot of this stuff didn't have to happen. And it only confirms what I think, what I've been thinking for a long time. And it sounds really terrible, but hey, that's what I feel. People are just getting stupider.
Mm-hmm.
They are. They're getting, really, they are. They're getting stupider because people are doing things that just simply do not make any sense.
Yeah. Well, I'm reminded of every time, like, something happens, it keeps getting worse and worse. Like, I'm always reminded of that Winston Churchill quote, which you can always count on America to do the right thing after they've exhausted every other possible option.
Yeah.
And it seems like that's the point we're getting to now. It's like, well, let's try. We could do the right thing. We could do this and try and stuff. Nah, I think we're going to try this way first.
We will not do, the common sense thing.
Yeah.
We will bend over backwards to do the politically correct thing, or, oh, well, we have to take this into consideration and we have to take that into consideration. At some point, you have to just say, something, this is a bunch of bullshit. We're not going to do this anymore. And, we have to as Americans, we have to get over this fear we have of offending people. Mm-hmm. Which is one thing that I've railed about this for years. I'm sick and tired of this thing that I have to couch my language in a way that, there are too many people I have to worry about not offending. Mm-hmm. I'm sorry. I can't do it. And I'm not going to be bothered to do it. And people say, oh, well, you're being insensitive. No, I'm not being insensitive, but I cannot walk around with a list of 20 or 30 different types of ethnic groups, mm-hmm. or sexual groups or political groups that, I can't offend. Mm-hmm. So in order to solve, I think, a lot of the problems that we are having in this country, we just have to stop being afraid of offending people. You're going to offend somebody, mm-hmm. So listen, let them get over it, mm-hmm. Because otherwise all we're doing now is just continually going around and around and around in circles, and nothing is getting solved. And as you can see for yourself, the past week or so, it's just getting worse.
Yeah.
It's getting worse.
Yeah. It is. I was because I teach a class, and we talk about world issues, and before all this happened, like over the weekend, I was wondering, like, oh, what am I going to talk about this week? And then and the other day, I'm just like, you know what, I got to talk about this because it's just. And, and I asked my students, I said to them, and I asked them, does this ever happen in Japan? And they're like one or two of them said yes, but most of the class, they're like, no, it doesn't happen in Japan. And I'm like, oh, really? And I showed them this video from like a week or two ago of the cops beating this immigrant at a traffic stop.
Uh-huh.
And then there's a protest last weekend in Tokyo about it. And I asked them after it was done, I'm like, still thinking it can't happen in Japan? It can, and it does. And not as much as in America, but it still does happen. And I asked them, how many of you knew about this? How many of you heard about this? And nobody's hands went up. And I'm like, yeah, so you got to, this is the kind of stuff that people got to start paying attention to. So.
Yeah. I mean, over here, you can't get away from it because, with the 24-hour news cycle and everything like that, you can't get away from it, and actually, something, I don't want to get away from it because, as I said on Dave's radio show, this is I honestly feel this is one of those pivotal points in American history where right here and now we have to decide what type of Americans we want to be and what type of America we want to live in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And this is an opportunity that's not going to come again. At least in my lifetime, I don't think. And I don't know when it's going to come again. And I only hope that we take advantage of this opportunity right here and right now to decide the future course of this country as it is now. Really, that's something I honestly believe. We have to decide what kind of Americans we want to be.
Yeah, absolutely. think that's a really good point. And I actually, the movie you picked for this week is actually a pretty good choice in light of all this craziness, because this is a good kind of crazy, and it gives us something to take our minds off it for at least 105 minutes or so.
And actually, I have a little something I like to read.
Okay.
Get started. Okay. To lovers of adventure, lovers of pure escapism, lovers of unadulterated entertainment, lovers of the ridiculous and the bizarre, to fun lovers everywhere, this podcast is respectfully dedicated. And I read that because not only is it fitting for this being our 25th episode, but it's also the way that the movie we're going to talk about begins. It has that dedication at the beginning.
Absolutely, yeah.
And the movie we're going to be talking about is the 1966 Batman, starring Adam West, Burt Ward, Frank Gorshin, Burgess Meredith, and of course, Cesar Romero as the Joker.
Yeah, and also Lee Merriweather subbing in for Julie Newmar as Catwoman.
Yeah, as Catwoman, yep.
Okay, so now this was made after the first season of the TV show, I believe, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Which is interesting, because I actually, for some reason, I think it was just like the assumption that, well, they do a movie at the end of the series. For some reason, I had thought this movie came after the series for a long time, and it's only like within the past recent few years that I discovered that no, it was made after the first season. Yeah,
this was definitely a rarity, because you didn't often find a feature motion picture made of a popular TV series while the TV series was running.
Yeah.
Which only goes to show you how popular Batman was at the time. Mm-hmm. This was the first wave of Batmania was in 1966. We talked when we talked about the 1989 Batman, mm-hmm. and we talked about the wave of Batmania that swept the country then. Well, this was the first wave in 1966, was the first mm-hmm. wave of Batmania. It was almost as insane as the 1989 mm-hmm. Batman. I mean, Batman was everywhere.
Yes. People don't realize, I think in retrospect, exactly how powerful and how popular and how massive this show really was.
Oh, yeah. And, well, I was a kid when it came out, so I remember. Mm-hmm. I mean, this was the show when we went to school the next day, because what also made the show unusual was that you watched, I think the first episode came on Tuesday night. It came on twice a week. Mm-hmm. Most shows didn't, but it would come on like Wednesday night. And at the end, there would be a cliffhanger. Batman and Robin would usually be in some kind of ridiculous death trap. Mm-hmm. And you had to come back the next night to see how they got out of it. Yeah, the next day, you would go to school. Even the teacher would be talking about, we would go in and spend 15, 20 minutes talking about the Batman episode we saw the night before. Well, and trying to figure out how Batman was going to get out of it.
Yeah, well, people don't realize this wasn't really a kid's show. This was prime time.
Yeah, this was on prime. This came on, I believe, 7:30, 8 o'clock at night. Yeah, this was a prime time TV show.
Yeah, and it was 7:30 p.m. Wednesdays and Thursdays. It says.
Yeah, Wednesday. Okay, I had it right. Yeah, Wednesdays and Thursdays. Yeah.
And it was the only this and Peyton Place were the only shows that were broadcast twice a week.
Oh well, Peyton. Okay, well, that was my mother's thing. I wouldn't know about that. But yeah, but Batman. Yeah, definitely Batman. I mean. Yeah, I mean, this show was literally off the chain. People would always say, okay, like now, people say, well, I don't understand how they got all those actors to do this. They must have not been doing anything else. They must have, they got the mistaken impression that the actors that played the villains were at the end of their careers, when actually, it was the exact opposite. They had actors calling up the studio, asking could they play a Batman villain.
Yeah.
They wanted to do this.
Mm-hmm. And it was apparently it was the biggest TV phenomenon of the mid-1960s, it says here.
Oh, yeah, yeah. I mean, just like in 1989, you could not go anywhere without seeing the bat symbol everywhere. There were, you had the Bat-Tusi. Which was the actual dance people were doing. They were doing the Bat-Tusi. Everything was bat this and bat that, and bat this. It was crazy. There were bat lunch boxes, bat, and something that I always like to remind people because you see people on the internet all the time that maintain that this is the TV series that supposedly ruined Batman
Right.
as a character. Now, there's a thing I like to do anytime I run across somebody on the internet who tries to give me that old tired argument that this show ruined Batman. And I say, well, have you ever seen any of the covers of the Batman comic from that time?
Oh, God.
And they say, well, no. And then I throw about half a dozen of them, like the one where Batman, where alien races, if they're in trouble, they shine the bat signal on the moon. And Batman jumps in his bat rocket ship. It goes to other planets to solve crimes. Or when he goes in his time machine, it goes back to caveman times to solve crimes, his caveman bat.
Yeah, or when he wore like a rainbow colored suit at one point too as well.
Yeah. I mean, this was the insanity that was going on in the Batman comic book. If you look at the Batman comic book from that time, the TV series was actually down to earth.
Oh yeah,
to the comic book.
Well, I remember in what was it, like about 10, 15 years ago. So Grant Morrison did a run on Batman, and he did he threw in a lot of crazy concepts and a lot of zany stuff in it. And people are like, wow, where'd he get this stuff from? He got it from the 50s comic books.
Yeah, exactly. If you go look, and I tell people all the time, just go back and read some of the Batman comic books from the 50s and 60s, and you will see exactly how batshit insane Batman was during that period.
Yeah, because this was in a world where it was after the Comics Code, after the Wordum seduction of the innocent, hit job and everything on comic books. So and back then, that had caused the comic industry to stagnate in a lot of ways. So all these because until that point, the comic industry was massive, and it was it was very diverse too. They had romance, they had crime, they had horror. And then
they had westerns, they had comedy, they had
Well, even DC's name, Detective Comics, comes from the fact that it used to be just an anthology about crime stories.
And something else that was really wacky at that time, for some reason, movie and TV stars were very big. Bob Hope had his own long-running DC comic.
Yeah.
Jerry Lewis, for God's sake. Yeah, he had a DC comic that ran for something 300 or 400 issues or something like that. That was very popular.
And then and Batman back in the early days, he did not fuck around. Under Bob Kane and Bill Finger, Batman was chucking people off rooftops.
Oh yeah. Batman, the 1989 Batman. What we think of as Batman now is actually closer to how he was when he first started than he is in the 1966.
Or even in the modern comics too.
Yeah, even in the modern comic. I mean, when you talk to most comic book fans now, and I actually despair when I talk to comic book fans about Batman, because they think Batman just started with Frank Miller. That's it. That's all they know. See, I go back to when Neil Adams and Denny O'Neil, they revamped the character.
Yeah.
So my history goes back a little bit further than theirs, and I try to convince them, well, you know what, you ought to go, but they don't want to know from nothing. They just know Frank Miller from then on, which actually is a small chunk of Batman history, really. When you look at the totality of Batman history, the Frank Miller era, where he did that's really a very small part. But what happened is that you had comic book creators, they picked up that ball and they just ran with it.
Well, Frank Miller never actually had a Batman run. He just did he just came in back then. He came in first to do Dark Knight Returns, and then they asked him to do something for the regular title after Crisis. So he came in and he did year one for them for that. But other than that, he didn't do anything else until Dark Knight Strikes Again, which was. But yeah, so it's not like his Daredevil run where he did that book for a few years.
And you know what? I agree with you, but here's the thing. Frank Miller, his influence had such a profound effect on writers and artists for the next 20 years.
Yeah.
To me, a lot of times it feels like Frank Miller has been on Batman for 20 years.
Oh, yeah.
Because people have just been, strip mining everything that Frank Miller did and just, rehashing it over and over again. So in a way, to me, it feels like Frank Miller has been doing Batman for 20 years.
Yeah. And what? So after the seduction of the innocent, for anyone who doesn't know, there was this quack psychiatrist, Frederick Wordham, who tried to make himself famous by launching a public crusade against comic books. And he wrote this book, Seduction of the Innocent, basically saying that comic books were the reason kids turned into juvenile delinquents and then grew up to be criminals. And he said, like, and it was, I mean, the book really reveals more about Wordham's own hangups than anything else, I think. Because, because he talks about how Batman having a boy, having Robin as a sidekick and like a child ward means that they were gay together and they were involved in pedophilia and all that. And I'm just like, where the hell are you getting this stuff from?
Well, that was the whole reason why Aunt Harriet was introduced.
Yeah.
I mean, to the TV show, so that nobody would have any question about why these three men were living in this mansion, this remote mansion, all by themselves. So she was put in there solely just to allay those speculations that any hanky-panky was going on, in Wayne Manor.
And which seems like a weird decision because she didn't know anything else that was going on in Wayne Manor, so it's not like she would have known if they.
And as far as I know, and I'm pretty sure if I looked it up, I could find, but they never really said whose aunt she was. Was she Bruce's aunt? Was she Dick's aunt?
No, I don't think they ever said.
Yeah, they never clarified exactly whose aunt she was.
I mean, I think when I was a kid, actually, for a long time, I thought she was Alfred's wife or something at one point.
Listen, who knows? She knows something? They did act like man and wife, too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Alfred and Aunt Harriet, yeah. They did act a lot like a married couple.
And so after this came out, like there were even congressional investigations into comic books, and in the industry, they got scared, so they created the Comics Code Authority to try and police themselves, and that kind of like cooled everything down. But it also meant like a lot of these other comics died. So like a lot of the crime stuff died out. A lot of the the horror stuff died out. Like EC Comics was pretty much destroyed after this. And for superhero comics, they decided like we're gonna make it like really, really light. So Batman, and also to allay the fears of Batman and Robin being gay, they introduced Batwoman and the first Batgirl, who wasn't Barbara Gordon, but it was Kathy Kane was Batwoman. And unlike the modern Kate Kane, she wasn't a lesbian. She was in love with Batman. And then I think it was her niece was Batgirl, if I'm remembering correctly.
I'll take your word for it.
Okay. I don't remember exactly. But then she ended up being reintroduced in the comics later as Flamebird. And so it was like Batman and Robin each had a Bat-girlfriend, basically, in the 50s.
Yeah. Which of course was the whole point, to allay any kind of suspicions that, there was any kind of sexual relationship between Batman and Robin.
Yeah. And I remember as a kid, like they had going to the library and checking out like some collected editions of old Batman comic books. It was like Batman through the 50s and something like that. And I had come off and when as a kid, like I had watched the TV show because it was in syndication on Fox, I think, at that time. So it was like every day in like 3:00 in the afternoon, they'd have Batman on Fox.
Oh, yeah. This thing was in syndication for, forever.
Yeah. And I remember in like summers, I would go stay with my grandparents, and they had cable, which we didn't have at my parents' house. So they had cable and they had FX. And like every morning on FX, they were running Batman on FX.
Okay, yeah.
So like all summer long, that was my routine. Get up at like 7:00 in the morning, watch Batman. And then, so I was watching both of these together with as well as like, Batman, the movie, and the 89 movie and then 92 Batman Returns, and then Batman the Animated Series. And then going back and reading those old comic books, that when people say like, oh yeah, this show ruined Batman, it made a mockery of him. No, it was a faithful adaptation of what was going on at the time.
Yeah, which is what I always tell people when they talk about, well, that's not Batman. Well, yeah, at that time, yeah, that was Batman.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
that was wasn't but see, that's the thing I love about Batman, and what I love about any character that has lasted as long as he has is that he can be portrayed in a variety of different mediums and in a variety of different ways. Like recently, I haven't watched it yet, but I've heard nothing but good things about it. There's the Ninja Batman, the one where Batman is a ninja.
Right. The
samurai.
anime that came out a few years ago.
Right, and I've heard that's very good.
It is, yeah.
Yeah, and you can do that. And there was the Batman, the Brave and the Bold, which which was a little bit lighter, and a little bit. You had, of course, Batman Beyond, where we had an older Batman mentoring a younger one.
Right.
That
he was more of like, and who was more of like a Spider-Man type in a way.
Yeah, exactly. But it was still Batman.
Right.
So Batman can be portrayed in a whole lot of different ways without spoiling the essence of who Batman is, I think.
And also something that the TV show had that the comic book really didn't was self-awareness. Like the TV show, like they weren't honestly thinking like, oh, this is how you make a superhero TV show. They were intentionally making a parody.
Yeah, they were having fun.
Yeah.
They were having fun. They were having, they knew that they were making a nice, light, entertaining show. And that, and which is nothing wrong with it if you realize that that's what you're doing.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I don't know. I have a hard time. I don't know. I have a hard time with anybody who does not like this movie. Because,
well, you know what? I mean, I kind of to a certain point, I understand it because I used to be like that too. Back when I was a teenager, it'd be like, oh, 66 Batman. That's terrible. It's campy. It gives comic books a bad name. But in retrospect, I'm like, no, you know what? I enjoyed it as a kid. I'm willing to admit that now, and I'm not even admit it. I'm happy that I'm able to say it. And I rediscovered this movie. I think this is right before The Dark Knight came out. Me and my friend, we decided we were going to marathon all the Batman movies.
Okay.
And so we started with we actually started with 89 Batman. We watched the Burton ones, the Schumacher ones. And then we decided, and before we switched over to Batman Begins, before we were going to go see the movie, we decided to go watch Batman 66. And watching it again, it was like, we were drunk. It was like middle of the night, and we were having a great time. This is like the most fun we had that night was watching this movie.
Yeah. I mean, you know what? And I think everybody goes through a period like that, because even I went through a period like that where I said, Batman 66. I don't want to be bothered because I'm sophisticated now. That's just for kids. And I think that happens to everybody, that they go through a period where they dismiss this movie, and then you get a little bit older, and you get a little bit more experience under your belt, and you get a little bit more appreciation of film and of pop culture and of the character, and you start seeing it in a totally different light, and then you start to appreciate it for what it is instead of what you think it should be or what you want it to be, which is, I find, is the problem. The core problem with a lot of superhero fans that they have with superhero movies is that they go see a superhero movie or they sit down and watch a superhero movie, and they're not actually watching the movie that they're watching. They're watching the movie that's in their head.
Right.
The movie that they want it to be.
There's also this weird trend, and Frank Miller and Alan Moore unintentionally created it, where comic books and superheroes have to be super serious and dark all the time, and that's not really what they were trying to do. Like, they were just trying to to do something different with these characters. But everybody took the wrong message from that, and so now you have people who are I hate to bash on Snyder fans again, but they're the biggest culprits of this. They think that vision of superheroes should be the only vision, where they're all dark and grim and there's no fun in the world at all.
You're right, exactly. And you cannot brush every superhero with that dark and depressing and grim sort of thing, because it doesn't work for every superhero. They even tried doing that with Spider-Man, for God's sake, who's Spider-Man has his bleak moments, but he's nowhere as dark as he was at one point.
Right.
They even tried doing that with him, but they tried doing that with every superhero.
Oh yeah, the 90s was notorious for that.
They tried doing that with everybody. Because you know what? Because that's what sold. I mean, the bottom line, that's what sold. They said, okay, well, if that's what the fans want, that's what we're going to give it to them. And as we have seen with the recent Justice League thing, giving the fans what they want all the time is not a good thing.
No. I mean, there's a reason the 90s continue to be parodied in comic books.
Yeah. You know what? I am really not a fan of that whole notion that fans now have we should have a say in everything that goes on. And, these are our movies and they're making them for us. No, they're not making them for you. And you know what? That's not how art is made. Art is not made by committee. We don't have time to poll 10 million Justice League fans, and ask you what you want in a Justice League movie. I make a Justice League movie, I put it in the theaters, you either like it or you don't. And that's the end of the story, as far as I'm concerned. This constant, for years, this shit has been going on. And me, frankly, I've had enough, and I know you have too. I've had enough of this nonsense. You know what? Put that energy into the shit that's going on in the real world now.
Yeah, or you know what? Put that energy and create something of your own then.
Exactly.
Just like that, the title of that one of the Watchmen episodes, if you don't like my story, write your own.
Yeah, write your own. Instead of insisting that Warner Brothers keeps investing money and time into making the Justice League movie you want to see.
Yeah.
Please, kill that noise. I don't have time for that nonsense. Back to the fun.
Yeah, now let's get into the fun. Now this movie, it just jumps right into the action, and it opens with one of the most memorable scenes, one often referenced, often mocked, always enjoyed. Whereas they're racing to Wayne Manor, and the thing I loved about this was the instant costume change. And as a kid, I always wondered, how does that thing work?
Yeah, right. They jump into the thing and they go and they slide it down the bat pole, and Bruce Wayne hits a big ass switch. And
I love how everything is labeled
with a big ass sign that says instant costume change. And I said, wait a minute. And then the next time you see them, they're wearing their costume. How did that happen?
Yeah, I mean, is there like robot hands that come out and like put their costumes on?
I have no idea. That's something that Grant Morrison would love.
Oh, I'm pretty sure he would. Yeah.
Yeah, listen. Don't worry about
it. He'd say something that involves like some sort of interdimensional dark matter that it activates some sort of interdimensional dark matter portal that passed through, and then what, Grant Morrison, if you're listening, I want you to come up with an explanation for the instant costume change lever. Yeah,
it's just such goofy, and I mean the whole thing with the bust of was it Shakespeare?
Shakespeare,
You flip the head open and you turn the switch and the doors open up and it's the bat pool separate. There's only two of them. Why is one more Bruce and the other more Dick?
And does it really matter? And also, Batpole access to Batcave via Batpole. Like, I mean, they don't know it.
You're the only two that used it. Why is there a sign telling you that this goes down to the Batcave? Oh man, you gotta love this stuff. It's goofy, but you know what? I love it.
Well, I mean, part of the fun is the goofiness. Like that's such a big part of why this movie is so fun.
Yeah, it is, and some of it is undeniably cool. Like, I mean, if you always ask me what's my favorite Batmobile, I'm always going to say this one.
Well, yeah, like the Batmobile looks awesome. Like, in terms of like as a crime-fighting vehicle, it's totally impractical to have to be driving around in a car with a permanent open roof on it, but it is a cool car.
Yeah, it is. I mean, you look at it and know what? It looks like something that comes right out of the comic book.
Oh yeah.
Whereas actually it was the other way around. Once they introduced this into the TV show, then they started drawing the Batmobile in the comic books to look like this because it looks so damn cool.
Well, yeah, that's the thing. The Batmobile was actually mostly like a conventional car for most of the time. And it was only after this show when they started designing like these kind of cool little vehicles that they started putting that stuff in the comic books. And then, but still, they were still like altered cars. Like they were still basically regular cars, just with alterations to it. And it wasn't until '89 when Burton did Batman that they really like overhauled the Batmobile and made it like a jet engine on wheels.
And actually, I can even still see Batman, even if you know, it doesn't matter what Batman it is. I can see Batman driving around in this more than I can seeing him drive around in a friggin' tank.
I'd
like
agree
in the
with that, but
Christopher Nolan movies.
I'd say that it would have to be, if it had like a covered canopy, then that would be the only change I think I'd make, and then it would work perfectly in the comics.
Yeah.
But then,
I mean, that and you got the tank that's jumping over rooftops. You know,
yeah. And that's kind of what I like about, you know, we've seen the photos of the Batmobile that they're going to be using in the Batman, and it's, you know, and it is much more along this vein. It's like this much more like conventional kind of roadster, which makes total sense because it's supposed to be a movie set in Batman's early days.
Yeah, I really like the look of it. Like I had mentioned before in the group, Superhero Cinephiles, I get a strong Jim Aparo vibe from it.
Yeah.
You know,
I like it.
That looks like something that he would draw.
I like it too. My only thing is like the front, the way they've got this like red light at the front bumper. It reminds me a lot of Kit from Knight Rider.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I'm hoping it doesn't have a red light going back and forth. But the way that bumper looks, I'm thinking that it's probably, I'm getting a battering ram feel from that. Like it'll pop out and be a battering ram if he's got to go through opposite. Yeah, I get that feel. But I like that Batmobile a whole lot.
Yeah, it looks really cool.
It sure does.
Now, so they drive to the airport, which part of me kind of likes the fact that they don't store all their vehicles in the Batcave, like because it actually is more realistic.
Robin calls up the airport and says, "Listen, get the Batcopter ready." And they got a whole crew. They're wearing overalls that's got the Bats logo on the back. You know, apparently Batman keeps a crew at the airport to service the helicopter. And they bring the helicopter out and they're prepping it and everything like that. It's shit.
Yeah, I got a very kind of Batman Inc. vibe from that kind of sequence. Like looking back at it, like I can see where Morrison got the idea from Batman Inc. because it is like this whole thing where I imagine like Wayne Enterprises is, secretly funding Batman and all that. Or maybe not even secretly, just is like funding Batman's. Because one of the things they do in this, they make a point to mention that they're not vigilantes. They're deputized.
Oh, yeah. There's a very pointed scene where Catwoman disguises Miss Kitka, a Russian newspaper woman. She, she says, "Oh yeah, well you wear costumes because you're like, vigilantes and stuff like that." Commissioner Gordon makes it very clear. No, Batman and Robin.
Oh, he gets righteously angry. He's like, "Certainly not." Oh
yeah, he oh no, they are deputized representatives of the law. And, they work with us and yada yada yada. No, shut up, bitch. And yeah, he gets real righteous with him, but. And
what? Her question makes total sense. Like she's like, wait a minute, you guys are you're in the real world. Like she is the one who's acting sane there. She's like, wait a minute, you're trusting the law enforcement into these two guys in weird costumes. You don't know anything about them.
Yeah, but I mean, Commissioner and Chief O'Hara, because she, says, "Well, could you take off your mask so I can get a picture?" Chief O'Hara gets, "Oh no, what are you talking about? They can't take off their mask. What are you crazy?" I said, now, mind you, these are two lawmen who are defending mass vigilantes, which is what they are. I don't care. You can talk about, they deputize or whatever like that, but yeah, they're still masked. Men that are taking the law into their own hands.
Yeah.
But I recognize the fact that this is a simpler time and they have to legitimize them, for the purposes of, because I imagine that there was somebody that was in the legal department would say, no, you got to put a line in here that says that, that they work with the police.
Yeah. But they they take the Batcopter out to sea, and then Batman drops the bat rope ladder, because everything's got to start with bat in this series.
And there's even a sign at the end of the ladder that says Bat Ladder.
Yeah. Oh man, as if he's gonna forget that that's what it's called.
I'm telling you, yeah.
And then so he goes down there, and the ship that he's trying to board disappears. So he ends up going into the water and comes out with this rubber shark on his leg.
It's a rubber. And this shark, and I mean, this is one of the best. There's a reason why this is like, this and The Bomb are the two scenes that everybody remembers. I don't know which is better, because Adam West is beating the hell out of this Robert. He's kicking and he's punching, and this thing, and it's actually wiggling. Now, I don't know how they did that, but the tail is like flopping back and forth, and oh man, it's ridiculous as hell.
There have been a lot of scenes in the comic books actually where Batman punches a shark, and I think even in one of the Arkham games, like there's a scene where you're trying to get into the penguin's lair, and you have to like kind of go through this like water-filled room, and there's a shark that'll jump out of you, and like you can punch the shark actually.
Yeah,
and it all comes back to this moment here.
Yeah, I mean, this is iconic now. You know, Batman punching that shark that's hanging onto his leg, and this shark won't let go. And of course, any real shark would have bit his leg completely off.
Oh yeah. And
we're just and Batman is hanging onto this thing for dear life. And then he tells Robin, he says, "Listen, I need the Bat-Shark Repellant."
And there's a whole collection of bat repellent sprays.
There's one to repel stingrays.
Yeah.
There's one for barracudas. There's one for piranhas. Oh my God, he's got big. But then again, he's Batman.
Yeah.
He's prepared for everything. What's the thing that you go to any Batman Facebook group, and invariably somebody will start to think, okay, well, could Batman beat so and so and so and so? And everybody will come up with that thing. Well, if he's got prep time, Batman can beat anybody.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, he's Batman. He's prepared for everything. So why wouldn't he have a can of shark repellent in a helicopter? In a boat, maybe. No, he's got it in a helicopter. Why? He's Batman.
You never know when a shark's going to jump out of the ocean and attack your helicopter.
It's just that simple. He would not be Batman if he was not prepared for every contingency.
Yeah,
that's all I got to say. That's also part of the reason why like people will laugh at that and think, oh, that's so stupid. But they weren't being serious with that. That was one of the parodies of here, because like Batman always had a way to get out of stuff in the comic book, so they're making fun of that. So they're like, oh, well, he's got bat repellent shark spray. Yeah. And Batman, in the course of this movie, gets into like 2 or 3 different traps, and he's always got, he always has, he pulls something out at the last minute, and Robin is like, of course, oh, Batman, how'd you know how to do that? Well, and he's always got an explanation for how he knew how to do this, some esoteric knowledge that why? He's Batman. It's just that simple.
Yeah, and I remember one of the phrases that Adam West probably said in every single episode was, "If I could just reach my utility belt."
Yeah. When they get caught to the boy, because they go back to investigate the boy, which has a complicated series of lenses that projected the image of the boat, and they go back to investigate the boy, and then we find out that the villains of the piece, who we've already named, the Catwoman, the Riddler, the Joker, and the Penguin, are in a submarine. And the Penguin activates the boy into a gigantic magnet.
Yeah.
And then they start firing torpedoes at the thing, which leads to one of the best scenes in the movie, and one of the performances I wanted to make sure that I highlighted, if you give me a minute.
Yeah, absolutely. I was going to mention him as well, so go right ahead.
Frank Gorshin as the Riddler.
Yeah.
That cat is absolutely brilliant in this movie. I mean, they're all great. First of all, it's great seeing all 4 villains interact together. That's a lot of fun, because they're obviously having a lot of fun doing it.
I think more than any other villain who's either in this movie or on the TV show, Frank Gorshin, you could have easily put him in a serious Batman movie and not change a thing about his performance.
You know what? You just actually took that's exactly what I was going to say next. If there was any villain from the TV show that I would have liked to see in a Tim Burton movie playing the Riddler, if they put him in there, he could have did it straight.
Yeah.
He could have did, because there is one part, because he displays such a psychotic bloodlust to kill Batman in this movie. That's his shit through the whole picture. It's kill everybody else is talking about, well, we're going to take over the world, and we're going to do this, we're going to do that. And the Riddler said, okay, yeah, fine, I'm down with that. But his main thing is to kill Batman.
Yeah.
Oh my God, he's scary in this part, because the Penguin is going through this long, complicated system with the Joker to fire off the torpedoes. And there's one part where he says, "Well, you just fire the damn torpedoes already." And the look in his eye is like, you say, "Damn, this guy is insane."
Well, Gorshin too, like the Riddler was his favorite Batman villain as a kid. So when he got this role, like he really invested himself in doing it right.
Yeah, in the TV series, I always loved it when it was Riddler. Mm-hmm. You know, when he showed up as a Riddler. John Astin, he tried his best, but he was, because he didn't project that same amount of psychotic bloodlust.
Right. And you know what?
Frank Gorshin did.
Which also, Jim Carrey also tried and failed to do that. He tried to be like a modern day Frank Gorshin. It just did not work.
Nah, it just didn't. Yeah.
And the Batman the Animated Series, they wisely knew that they could not replicate Frank Gorshin. So they did a completely different take on the Riddler and made him more calculating and more even-handed.
Yeah, and I think that's the way to go with it. If you can't get Frank Gorshin, and of course, I believe he's passed away.
Yeah, he passed away in 2005, I think.
But I mean, his Riddler is like, wow. Like I said, I watched this movie today, and as always, I was just captivated by his performance. And no, I also like the fact that he's the only villain that has two different outfits.
You know what? I was going to mention that too, because I'm not positive, but I think the whole thing about the Riddler wearing a suit, I think it actually comes from this movie.
I think so too. I believe he didn't wear a suit but I like the fact that when he's going out to commit crimes and stuff like that, he wears the one-piece suit. Mm-hmm. But then when he's just, chilling around the lair, the guy's wearing a suit. He's the best dressed villain that's in the room.
Yeah, which is that's always like I've always felt that was the best look for the Riddler was that green suit with the question marks on it. It works so much better. It differentiates him so much more than the unitard thing.
Yeah, and then there's a scene where they're in the lair and the Riddler is jumping around and he's explaining how they're going to get, and it's like he's putting on a fashion show for the other villains because he takes off the suit jacket and he folds it up neatly.
Yeah,
He's turning it around, he's showing off the vest because he's got like a silk vest. Yeah, listen, the Riddler is cool, man. I don't care. If anybody who thinks that the Riddler is not a cool villain has never seen this movie. Because he's the coolest out of all of them.
Yeah, and Burgess Meredith, his Penguin is classic. Like you couldn't buy him in a serious movie, but he still does a really good job in this. And just like every time I've seen Burgess Meredith after this, I always think the Penguin is the first thing I ever always thought.
You know what I like about him in this movie? How he doesn't take no shit from anybody.
Yeah.
Even when the Joker gets in his face, he tells the Joker, he says, "Listen, this is my submarine." Mm-hmm. He said, "On land you command, at sea it is me." and he doesn't. His Penguin doesn't take no shit from nobody. He's running things here.
Yeah, And Lee Merriweather, she does a pretty good job too. Like she's just basically a stand-in for Julie Newmar because Julie Newmar had a back injury and couldn't do this movie. But
was that what? I figured. I always figured. I never really investigated why. I just assumed that she was off because she was pretty busy doing movies.
Well, she had done 2 episodes of the first season, and then she had I think she had injured herself actually on the set of the TV show, and so she had this back injury she was recovering from, so she couldn't do the movie. So they brought in Lee Merriweather instead, and then after that, Newmar came back and did like 11 episodes of season 2 or something like that, and then Eartha Kitt came in and did 3 episodes in the 3rd season.
Yeah, she did. Yeah, listen, I have no problem with her performance. And actually, her performance in the context of this, because one thing that I like about this movie is that it actually is a movie. Mm-hmm. They give it a story, that's big enough to accommodate the fact that, well, this isn't just an episode of the TV series and we just made it bigger. Right. No, there's an actual story here where we see Bruce Wayne fall in love with Miss Kitka, and it's a whole arc. Yeah, I mean, for Bruce Wayne, so it's not just like well, we're just going to just blow this up bigger. Yes, it is bigger, but it's bigger for a purpose because there's a big enough story to justify the running time. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And Lee Merriweather, like I love the way she moves is really it is very cat-like, the way she kind of sways in the movie and everything. And she does a really good job. I remember this one scene when they're looking through the periscope and
she's like meowing, and then the pirate who's standing next to her just kind of gives her this look, and he's like, "What the fuck is wrong with this chick?"
Yeah, he said, what's wrong with her? And in the fight scene, she's always standing in the back making these scratching hang on, like she wants to get in there, but
Well, there is that kind of like 60s sexism they had here. So Catwoman never fights, and then whenever something goes wrong, like when they have to sweep up the guinea pigs, like Penguin asks the Catwoman to do to bring a dustpan.
Yeah. But that's another thing I like about the fight scenes. This is the only Joker that I can think of doesn't mind getting his hands dirty. Like usually the Joker is portrayed as like he can't fight and everything like that.
Right.
Now when it's a fight, the Joker jumps right in there. He's swinging like, I said, damn, he's swinging like Mike Tyson.
Of the villains in this movie, like the Joker, Cesar Romero's Joker is the one that impresses me the least, actually. I mean, he does a good enough job, but he doesn't, he's like somewhere between the Riddler and the Penguin, but he doesn't have the showmanship of either of them.
Okay. Cesar Romero as the Joker doesn't do anything in this movie you haven't seen him do in the TV series.
Yeah.
Whereas the other three, we see them in totally different roles.
Yeah.
Like, like the Penguin is quite obviously the leader.
Mm-hmm.
He dominates, the others by virtue of his intelligence, and he's got, the submarine, and, it's his plan and everything like that. And the Catwoman, she's got the thing going on with Bruce Wayne, so she's got her own little thing going on the side, and we get to see a different aspect of the Riddler that we've never seen before with this bloodthirst to kill. So those villains are doing things that we haven't seen them done in the TV series. But Cesar Romero as the Joker really doesn't do anything we haven't seen him do before. No.
And, I've always thought it was hilarious that Cesar Romero refused to shave his mustache anytime he played the Joker.
My God. And in HD, you can even see it even more plain.
Oh, God.
Yeah, I mean, when you were watching the movie on your little 12-inch black and white TV set, you didn't notice. But, when he does a close-up in HD, you can see that thing plain as day.
Oh, yeah.
But apparently he refused to shave his mustache. But still, you know what? He's not my favorite Joker, but he was my first Joker, so he holds a special place in my heart.
Yeah. It is kind of weird to see a movie that has the Joker in it, and the Joker plays like fourth string to all the other villains.
Yeah, right. Yeah, because you know what? That's the thing about Cesar Romero's Joker. He's not insane.
No.
Now, if we were talking about the Joker in any other context, the other villains wouldn't even work with him because they'd be too scared.
No, that was actually a thing. Like, I remember if you read the Infinite Crisis series, at the end of it, because there's the alternate reality Lex Luthor, Alexander Luthor. He's the one who's like posing as Lex Luthor and like gathering all the supervillains together. But the one villain he refuses to involve is the Joker. Yeah. And the series ends with Lex Luthor coming up to Alexander Luthor. And he says, "You made one mistake. You didn't let the Joker play." And then the Joker appears out of the shadows to kill him.
See what I mean?
Yeah. And that was the thing. Like, I remember another one. It was Underworld Unlimited, I think it was called. It was like a 90s miniseries event that Mark Waid did. And it was like Neron was offering all these like upgrades to all these villains if they sold their souls to him. And he shows like a table of villains. And like the ones who had already agreed to like kind of convince these other guys, these second and third string villains to join up with them. And one of them was the Joker. And it was, I think it was whoever the narrator was, whoever the main character, I think it was the Trickster was the main character in that series. And the narration is like, "Oh, nice job, Neron. You bring in the guy that nobody wants to work with." Like when villains want to scare each other, they tell Joker stories.
Right, exactly. That's what they said. I remember reading that someplace. They said, yeah, that's how, supervillains, they scare their kids. They say, okay, well, if you don't go to bed, the Joker's going to come get
you. Yeah.
Shit like that. Yeah. But yeah, if we were talking about the Joker that we know from the comic books, he wouldn't be working with these guys.
No, they wouldn't want him in there.
They wouldn't. Yeah, what, the Joker? No, what?
Crazy? Shit. Don't call him. Don't call him.
No.
If he asks, we're out of town.
We were. Yeah. And then the Joker shows up and says, "Oh, I hear you got a plot. Go to us." Plot? No, not. Do we have a plot going on? No plot here, Joker.
But yeah, he's the only one who doesn't really do much for me in this movie. Like I find things I like about all the others. The weird thing about him though is why the hell does he wear a face mask when he goes out in public?
Yeah, I know. They had that scene where they all wearing the masks and everything like that. You know,
and the Riddler and Catwoman's part of their costumes, but the Penguin and the Joker, I'd be like, what are you doing?
Yeah. I mean, like, if it's not obvious to anybody that you're the Joker, then there's something wrong with that person. You know, it's not. That's just one of the elements of the movie that you have to say, okay, you know what? I'm just going to go with it because
there are a lot of things like that, and it is part of the fun of it. Like when they find the Penguin posing as Commodore Schmidtlap, and the Penguin's plan is, oh, you know what? I'm gonna to get them to confirm my identity. I'm gonna get them to take me to the Batcave to use their retinal scanner, and then I'm gonna use the guinea pigs and rehydrate them,
and then Batman and Robin, they know he's the Penguin.
Right. And then I'm like,
the disguise doesn't fool them for a second. Batman says, stop bullshitting around. You're the Penguin. He's like, me? Penguin? No, I'm not joking.
And that's one of those things where it's like, why he's the Penguin. You've got him unconscious. Just rip off his freaking makeup.
But wait a minute. Here's the thing that always makes me fall down on the floor laughing when they say, okay, well, we're going to go over to the Batmobile and take your fingerprints. But he's done something to his fingers that they can't take his fingerprint. So the Penguin says, oh, why don't you just take me to the Batcave and use your retinal imaging thing to come? How does he know that? How does the Penguin know they have one of them things in there? And it never occurs to Batman and Robin to look at each other and say, well, how does he know we have one of those in there? I guess every crime fighter has a retinal scanner in their lair, and that's why, but that leads to a very good fight scene where they take him back to the Batcave. Indeed, first they knock him out with the bat knockout spray.
Yeah.
So he doesn't know, he doesn't know the way to the Batcave. And the device that Admiral Schmidtlap has is a device that takes all the moisture from the human body.
Yeah, and somehow this is supposed to make whiskey faster. I did not understand.
I don't know. But what happens is that the Penguin brings him back to the Batcave, hooks him up to the distilled water pump in the Batcave, rehydrates them, and through some magic of science, this turns them back into human beings again.
Yeah.
Two of his henchmen.
They rehydrate.
Yeah, but the scary thing is, now Batman and Robin start fighting them, and when they hit them, they disappear.
Right.
And Robin says, what happened? Batman says, well, he used distilled water.
and somehow that turned them into antimatter?
Yeah. You know what? This isn't even Star Trek technobabble at this point.
They're just throwing random stuff out, yeah.
It's magic. That's what it is. And they use this dehydration machine. They go to the United Nations, which of course isn't called the United Nations. It's
the World Security Council or something
World
like
Security
that.
Council, yeah. But it is the United Nations for all intents and purposes. And they dehydrate all the members of the World Council, and the plan being to hold them for ransom.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that's what they do. They pull it off, successfully. Who knew? Who knew? They pull it off. So they're holding the world for ransom. And of course, it is up to Batman and Robin. Can they rescue the World Council members? Can they rehydrate them? Can they stop these four foul villains from taking over the world? Well, what do you think?
Yeah. And we also see more of him as Bruce Wayne in this. And I think if I'm not mistaken, that was actually one of Adam West's requests for the movie, was to have more stuff to do as Bruce Wayne.
He actually gets into two major fight scenes.
Yeah.
And the Batman as Batman actually does not have a fight scene until the end when they're on the submarine.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
Because when the guinea pigs get rehydrated, they just disappear as soon as they touch them.
Yeah, as soon as they touch them. So that doesn't really qualify as a fight scene. It's a fight scene in the context of that. What's the word I'm for? It emphasized the goofiness of the plot.
Yeah.
But it's not actually a fight scene. But as Batman, no, he doesn't actually fight until they have that big fight scene, at the end of the movie on the submarine. The two major fight scenes he has is as Bruce Wayne.
Right, absolutely, yeah. And they got this whole subplot with him going romancing Kitka.
Yeah, which kind of clouds his judgment, which I like that they should. Matter of fact, you know what? One thing I like to say, a lot of people, they rag on Adam West and stuff like that. If you get a chance, folks, you got to look up Adam West's work that he did on television during the 50s and 60s. Mm-hmm. Adam West was a very highly regarded dramatic actor.
Yeah.
In the 50s and 60s. And he was, believe it or not, he was a serious contender to take over the role of James Bond.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Yeah. Yeah. With Sean Connery, when he first left, and George Lazenby, stepped in and they were looking around for people to take over the role. Yeah, Adam West was in the running.
Oh, okay.
That's how highly regarded he was. A lot of people make fun of his portrayal as Batman and as Bruce Wayne, but you watch this movie and he does some of his best work as Batman, I think, in this one. Especially, there's a scene I always point to when he finds out that Miss Kitka is, that Catwoman is actually Miss Kitka. Mm-hmm. And he's remembering the music that he heard the night they went on their date and they fell in love. And Adam West has to convey a lot wearing that mask, just using his eyes and his lips.
And he does it. He sticks that landing really well.
Thank you. I'm glad he sells that friggin' scene. Where you actually feel for the guy. You say, oh shit, he really was in love with her. It wasn't he really was in love with her. And Robin is standing there. And Burt Ward is also a good enough actor that he knows when to come in. He lets him have his moment for a couple of minutes, and then he comes in and he just simply says, I'm sorry. And that's all he says. And you say, oh, okay. That was good.
Yeah. And the thing about Adam West and the genius thing about his performance is that everybody else is being zany and over the top. Adam West plays it 100% straight and earnest.
Yeah, that's it. He lets everybody else be crazy.
Yeah, which makes him stand out all the more because of that.
His purpose is to be the steady center of all of the goofiness that's going on around him. He plays a Batman that's not in on the joke.
Right.
Everybody else around him is in on the joke though, but he's not.
Which even in a campy series like this, you need to have that person because that differentiates him from the other villains. Right? Because the other villains, and especially like you think about the Joker, the whole thing with the Joker and the Batman is that Batman is the straight man to the Joker's comedian.
You're right.
And you got to have that dynamic. Otherwise, like that relationship doesn't quite make any sense.
So, it doesn't work. Yeah. It doesn't work otherwise.
So even though, Romero's Joker doesn't really get the spotlight in here, he doesn't really have a whole lot to do, they do still keep that tone, right? Where Batman's still got to be the straight one.
Yeah, he interacts more, but just because of the fact that all four villains are in this and due to the romantic subplot, he interacts more with Catwoman than he really does with the rest of the villains. Yeah. He really doesn't get much time with them except during the fight scenes. Right. Because he has that great fight scene where he's being held prisoner by the four villains. And he tricks them into thinking he has a radio strapped to his wrist because he says, well, I want to see Miss Kitka. So, so Catwoman, she gets into her Miss Kitka disguise and they throw him in the room with her and they say, okay, well, you got 5 minutes. And of course, because he's Batman, he realizes the possibility that the villains are actually listening to their conversation. Yeah. So he says, well, I've got a radio strapped to my wrist and if I can just get to it, So of course they take him out and they untie him to get to the radio. And what they do that for? But then now he proceeds to kick ass all over. and he commences to kicking everybody's ass, you know. which goes back to an earlier scene, another scene that Adam West sells very effectively when he first wakes up and he sees all the villains are standing there. And, you know, he wakes up and he sits up in the couch and he says, well, where's Miss Kicker? And you know, they start making fun of him. And he says very seriously, and he's not bullshitting around. He said, if you put your hands on her, I'll kill all of you.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and you believe it. You know, there's no comedy in the way he says that.
Oh, no. He is dead serious when he delivers that line.
Yeah.
And, but one of the things I like, too, is when Bruce is going out with Miss Kitka, and then before the date, you know, he tells Robin that you should follow in the Batmobile. But because Robin is a teenager, he says, well, no, you can't drive the Batmobile. So he makes Alfred, and she calls up Alfred. He's like, Alfred, do you have your driver's license on you? As if some cop is going to pull over the Batmobile.
Yeah, exactly. He said, yes, sir, I got it. It's right in my wallet. And when he goes out, he's wearing his black suit. He's got on a bowler, and he's got a mask on
under his glasses. Yeah,
under his glasses. Oh, for Pete's sake! And like you said, it's like any cop is gonna pull over the Batmobile.
Yeah.
If Robin was driving, you think a cop is gonna say, "Well, Robin, I gotta give you a ticket." Please give me a break. Oh man, but it is a nice moment that we have, and it's a way of getting Alfred into the action too. So it's not just he's in the Batcave and, you know, he goes there and him and Robin have a nice little conversation about, you know, responsibility and discretion, because of course there's a camera that's watching Bruce and Miss Kitka. Don't ask me where the camera was. This was before we had drones. So I'm watching the scene and I'm saying, wait a minute, where are these images coming from? So when they get romantic, of course, Robin turns it off and he says to Alfred, he says, well, you know what, I can't, you know, yeah, I know I'm supposed to be watching all the time. And Alfred, you know, he said, listen, you're doing the right thing. You know, you're a conscientious young man. Don't worry about it. And I thought that was nice.
Yeah.
I always appreciate when movies have scenes that they don't have to have, but they do because it's a nice bit of characterization.
Yeah, I agree.
So we get that nice little moment between Robin and Alfred. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah. And what was it? Oh, you know what? The thing I love too is just like all the coincidences that happen in this movie. So like there's the when we went to the torpedo scene when they're trying to fire the torpedoes at them. So Batman's able to reach his radio detonator to destroy the first two, but then the batteries die when the third one's looking at them.
I told Batman to stop using them cheap Kmart batteries. Duracells, man.
You know what reminded me of was that scene in Ocean's 11 when they're trying to blow the vault open, and George Clooney's like hitting the button and it's not working.
Yeah,
and it's because the batteries there are no batteries in it. He's like, and Matt Damon's like, "Do you put batteries in it?" And he's like, "Of course I put batteries." Like, wait, okay. He's like, and that everybody, I just got a total flashback to that scene.
Yeah.
But you know what? It would not surprise me if Steven Soderbergh got the idea from that scene from this part in Batman.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised either, because you know what? And I tell people this too. You'd be surprised how many modern filmmakers have a love of this movie, and it's inspired them in, you know, some kind of way, you know. But I have never heard a popular director, when asked about this movie, deride it or put it down or, you know, say it's not a bad. Matter of fact, they say they love it.
Yeah. Because it's not a bad movie. Like, it's campy and it's cheesy, but it's supposed to be campy and cheesy.
It's, you know what? It's supposed to be fun.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's a fun superhero movie, and if you sit back and, you know, you got a big, like me, I watch this, I get a big 3-liter soda, I get a big bag of potato chips, I get, you know, a mountain of Reese's peanut butter cups, and I just sit back and I just enjoy this movie, because that's all it is. It's nothing but pure unadulterated fun.
Yeah.
It's a throwback to a simpler time. Yes, a time when superheroes could be fun, and they're supposed to be fun all the time. They're not supposed, we don't need Judge Dredd all the time.
Right. But the thing I like about this, and this is part of the parody aspect too, was just like all these coincidental escapes. So like with that one, they couldn't the radio detonator runs out of batteries, and then that third torpedo's coming near them. You hear an explosion, and they go, and then they're not. They look at the periscope, they don't see him anymore, and it cuts to Batman and Robin in the Batboat again, driving away, and Robin's like, "Gosh, thank God for that porpoise that sacrificed his life to save us."
and you know what? That is a throwback to like the Saturday morning serials where you would go there. At the end of the episode, you'd see the hero like go over a cliff in a wagon or in a car, right? Okay, and the car blows up. Oh my God! Well, how do you escape? Well, you come back next week and you see a scene you didn't see before where he jumps out just before, the thing goes over. And you say, wait a minute, they didn't show that last week.
Yeah.
It's a cheat, obviously, which is what they did here. It's a cheat. We did, well, how do we get out? Well, that dolphin jumped in front of us.
Well, it's a cheat, but it's also done as a parody. It's making fun of that idea, both not only in those old serials, but in the comic books too. They did that kind of stuff all the time.
Yeah.
And that's the parody part of this. That it's actually got a lot of smart parody in this movie.
Yeah, I mean, like with the bomb, the other famous scene with the bomb, where Bruce Wayne, after he's escaped from the four villains, he runs back to Wayne Manor, gets Robin, and then they go back, to the hideout. Now, of course, the villains have all cleaned out, but they've left this huge, big, honking black bomb with a fuse, and it's going off. So Batman grabs it, and he's running along this pier trying to get rid of the bomb. And he keeps running into the same people all the time.
It's like they're just following him around.
Yeah, you're right, yeah. He runs, there's the three nuns, there's the Salvation Army.
The woman pushing her baby.
Oh my God, he keeps running.
I love that and he's like, "Oh, I'll just throw it over the edge of and he goes to throw it over the edge of the pier, and he sees the family of ducks there."
Yeah, and of course he says that famous line: "Sometimes
you can't get rid of a bomb.
You can't get rid of a bomb." And he's running like a crazy man all over this pier. And then I like how they get in the little life lesson because of course the hideout of the four villains is inside a waterfront bar. So Batman yells at everybody, "Listen, I got a bomb. Y'all got to get out." And so everybody screams and they leave.
Except for the two ladies.
Except for the two fat women that are eating all the seafood. They're like eating every crab in the plate. So, they ain't leaving their crab legs. So after he gets rid of the bomb and it blows up, Robin says, "Oh, I can't believe, why did you risk your life in them low lives and everything like that?"
Robin's a judgmental little prick in this movie.
Basically, he said, "You risk your life. Why you risk your life for those drunks?" He said, "Those are low lives."
The other part when they're scaling the roof and he's complaining about people who drink and that. And I'm like, you know what? Fuck you, Robin.
I know, right?
I'm sitting there watching this movie, sipping my scotch. I'm like, fuck you, Robin.
Yeah, exactly, right? Yeah,
this is why nobody put you into movies until Joel Schumacher came around.
He says, "I can't believe you risked your life for them low lives." And Batman has to chastise him. He said, hey, wait a minute, slow down there.
They may be drinkers, Robin, but they're people too.
Yeah, they're people. They're human beings. Lighten up, man.
What I told you, my friend and I, when we were watching this, and like I said, it was the middle of the night, and we were drinking, having a good time, eating pizza, and then it gets to that scene. We're laughing our asses off at like that. They may be drinkers, but they're people too.
Yeah, but they're people too. Yeah, no shit. Yeah. Oh man, but you know what? It's these little life lessons he has to teach Robin. It's not all about being a crime fighter. It's also about being a good citizen as well.
Yeah.
So it's all good.
And then my other favorite coincidence was when they're in the Batcopter and the Riddler shoots the missile at them. and they go out of control, and Batman's like, this may be the end. And then they just happen to land on a stack of rubber, because there's a rubber convention that just happens to be in Gotham City.
There's a rubber mattress convention in town. Now, first of all, I've never heard of a rubber mattress convention. Have you?
No.
I doubt there's ever been a rubber mattress convention in the history of civilization. But the Batcopter just happens to land in the middle of on a pile of rubber mattresses in this rubber mattress. Why? He's Batman. He probably read about it someplace, and he deliberately steered the helicopter in a controlled dive to land on these mattresses.
And he even mentions, right? He's like, I think I spotted it out of the corner of my eye. It's like,
yeah, exactly. You happen to spot a rubber mattress convention out the corner of your eye.
As the Batcopter's spinning out of control.
Why not? He's Batman.
He's Batman.
That's you know what? That's how you explain away everything in this movie that he does. He's Batman.
Yeah. There's also a nice bit of parody and, like, pretty harsh, I thought, political commentary when he calls up the Pentagon, right?
Ooh, yeah.
Because he says, and he asks him, he's like, did you happen to sell any, pre-war submarines recently? He's like, oh, let me just check that out. And he, like, looks through his Rolodex. He's like, oh yeah, we sold one to a Mr. P.N. Gwynn. And Batman's just like, you sold, and he's like, what was his address? He's like, oh, he didn't give an address. He just left a post a P.O. box. And he's like, you sold a pre-nuclear submarine to a man named P.N. Gwynn, who does it, and he didn't even leave his address. And you didn't think there was anything suspicious about that.
And you can just hear, after he said that Adam West is such a good actor, that you can hear the "you fucking dumbass" on the end of it. you can hear it in his same voice.
and the guy at the Pentagon, he doesn't even realize what he said. He's just
he's clueless. Yeah,
he's clueless. Like, okay.
Well, remember, just before Batman puts the call in, we see where the guy's playing tiddlywinks with his secretary. So obviously this guy, he should have never had his job in the first place.
Yeah, this is a guy who failed up.
Yeah, exactly. And guys, so Batman's with me. Wait a minute, you just sold a submarine? Yeah. The guy's name was Penn E. Gwynn. He seemed all right. He seemed like a good guy. And Batman is just like saying, "Oh man, this is why I wear a mask." Oh man.
But I love that little bit of political commentary, because it's just like it's such a small, but that's the kind of shit that the military was involved in back then. Yeah,
exactly. They were just selling stuff off and not really much caring who they sold it to.
Yeah.
Folks, for those of you listening, go do your research and check up on the military history of that time. You see that actually was going on. They were selling stuff to people, and listen, if you had $500,000, yeah, sure, here, take a submarine.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
No problem.
But the thing I love is that he sold it like a week ago, and the Penguin has already had time to make it look like a giant penguin.
Oh, he's done painted that thing up, and instead of propellers, it's got flippers.
Mm-hmm.
He retrofitted the hell out that thing in like a week. The periscope is like a penguin's head.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's a cool looking submarine, and we really get to get a good look at it in that big major fight scene at the end of the movie where Batman and Robin, they take on the villains and the whole crew of the submarine, and everybody and this is the one where we get, like in the TV series when they had the fight scene, they would have like the pow and everything. Okay, we get that during this fight scene.
Yeah.
Which goes on for, it's a pretty long fight scene because people get knocked in the water.
Everybody gets knocked into the water. Like at one point, I think it's like Batman and Robin, the only ones still standing out on the deck, and then Catwoman comes up behind him and pushes them both in.
Yeah, exactly. She's the only one who doesn't get in the water, mainly because anybody that's still in sub, like you said, she pushes them in.
Yeah, and then this is when they find out that she's really Kit Kat, because This cracks me up watching it because Catwoman, Lee Merriweather throughout this whole movie, she's so graceful, she moves with such purpose, and then she runs in the sub that she's run into hundreds of times in this movie, and then she trips and the mask falls off her face.
Yeah. Now we've seen her, running around this sub in high heels, and never once she's tripping. But now all of a sudden, boom, 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 she hits the ground, and the mask falls off, and then she turns around, and Batman and Robin and says, "Holy shit!"
Yeah.
But
even still, like Batman snaps right back into character because he has that moment where he's looking forlorn and everything, and then Robin says, he's like, "Holy heartbreak." He's like Batman, he does that. I'm sorry, and then Batman chides him. He's like, "Say no more, Robin," because you don't want to reveal too much.
Yeah, and he gives him the handcuffs. Notice that he doesn't do. He gives the handcuffs to Robin.
Yeah.
He doesn't put them on her. Nice little bit of characterization there. He can't quite bring himself to,
right.
Slap him on her. Robin ain't got no problem with that shit.
No.
Robin snatches them to click.
Well, that's because Robin's a little shit.
Robin said, "Yeah, give him to me. I'll lock her up." I ain't getting none. So hey.
And then you've got the real Schmidt Lab. He comes up and he's like, because this whole time he thinks he's on a yacht. Right?
Yeah. They've had this real bullshit set up that make them think, they've had a guy like blowing smoke past his porthole, and he blows a foghorn every once in a while. And one foot has got a flipper, and it's in a little kiddie pool, and he's making water sounds. So Admiral Schmidlap, who apparently, I'm trying to figure out how this guy created this device, because he is not the brightest bulb in the chandelier.
No, you know what I'm betting? I'm betting that one of his employees did it, and he took all the credit.
Yeah, that sounds more plausible.
Yeah, because this guy's such a dumbass.
Oh yeah.
I mean, plus he never even leaves his room. Like, I always wonder, this entire time they've got him captive. What if he has to use the bathroom?
I mean, when you have the Joker come in to bring you your tea, and the only thing you can say is, "You know what? I don't think you're getting enough sun." And the Joker has this great line where he says, "Well, no," he said, "I don't." He said, "Most of my activities keep me pretty much undercover." Which I thought was pretty funny, taken in the context of the Joker's activity. He said, no. He said, "My activities pretty much keep me undercover."
That is really the most the Joker gets to do in this movie, is he gets to deliver the tea.
Which, again, we have to go back to Joker that we know would not be delivering tea to anybody.
No.
Not unless there was the purpose that he was going to kill him after he delivered the tea. Yeah. But yeah, basically the Joker is pretty much an errand boy in this one, because everybody's always telling him to do something, and he's jumping to do it when the whole thing, like I was saying earlier, about the torpedoes. He tells the Joker, "We'll go over there and fire it," and the Joker jumps and does it.
Yeah.
Admiral Schmidlap needs tea. The Riddler says, "Yeah, he's ringing for his tea." The Joker jumps in, runs and go get it. I said, yeah.
Oh yeah, absolutely, yeah. And then they go back to the World Security Council to restore them all. And because Schmidlap, he trips over and he knocks over the vials with all the Security Council members on it. Right. And they all get mixed together, and then he sneezes. They all blow up even more.
It's just even worse.
And so then Batman and Robin, they've separated them all, and they've got them back at the World Security Building or whatever it's called. And then the super molecular dust separator to filter it out.
Because somehow, again, listen, he's Batman. He's done gathered together every single particle of these people, gathered them together, and through this miracle machine, he separates them.
Yeah. Oh, and while they're doing it, again, Robin's a little shit. Because he's like, would it be in the world's best interest if we just change the dust samples a little bit? It's like, holy fucking shit, man. What is wrong with this kid?
You know what? See, this is why I love doing this. You know what? You're pointing out a lot to me about Robin. I'm going back and watching this again and say, yeah, Robin, you know, you're kind of messed up, man. I mean, yeah, because he suggests, yeah, you know, we ought to tinker around with them and, you know, maybe we can make things a little bit better. And basically, Robin wants to be God.
Did you read the Frank Miller's Dark Knight sequel, right? Dark Knight Strikes Again. Yeah, I remember the main villain of it is basically Robin, like who's gone psychotic and has like gone through all this genetic mutations or whatever that he's done to himself. I'm thinking that's the Robin from this movie. No wonder Batman fired your ass, because you're a fucking little megalomaniac. This is like Robin's supervillain origin story.
Yeah, I mean, that's Robin's first thing. Well, Batman, you know what? While we got him here, maybe we can tinker around with him a little bit and, you know, we do this and that and things will be a little bit better. And Batman slaps him down and says, no.
You know that famous meme, the comic book panel of Batman smacking Robin? Yeah. This is probably where the idea comes from.
Yeah. Because Batman would have been justified in turning around and smacking the shit out of him at this point. So, what are you talking about? Well, we can tinker around with him and make things a little bit better, and we can do this. And Batman just looks at him for a bit and says, "No." He said, "We don't do that." He said, "We don't do that. We're the good guys." No, and then we'll put them back just the way they were, Robin.
They put them back together, but they're all speaking different languages now.
Yeah.
So they did still get mixed up, which makes me wonder: did Robin fuck with that molecular device?
Yeah, right. Because Batman, he just says, "Oh well." You know, listen, I done did the best I could. I can't do no more.
But I love that work out. they're both kind of looking at each other, and Batman's like, to the window, but quietly.
He said, "Let's leave inconspicuously." Oh yeah, well, going out the window and sliding down 100-foot building, yeah, that's inconspicuous.
But I also love the idea of, like, you know, he's like, okay, well, we kind of fucked up, so let's just kind of move back away slowly.
Let's just kind of, you know, we'll just ease on out the back door. And if we just leave quietly, nobody will know. Because the whole world is watching this. Mm-hmm. This is being broadcast all around the world. Because everybody's wondering if Batman is going to be able, you know, to reconstitute the world. You know, the members of this World Council. Right. And he's got the tubes all set up and they're in the chair. Why they're not doing this in a laboratory, in a controlled setting is beyond me. But hey, once again, it's Batman. Yeah. And he rehydrates them and boom, they all come back and they're arguing just like they did when they got justified by the villains. But as you say, now they're all speaking different language. Like the guy from England, he's speaking Swahili. Yeah. And the guy from America, he's speaking French.
I think it was the American guy was speaking Japanese. I remember.
Yeah,
because I remember being able to recognize what he was saying.
Yeah, and Batman and like you said, and well, you know, we still must have got some. But now, in light of what you're saying, I'm wondering, did Robin go in there when Batman's back was turned, or Batman?
I think Robin's been fucking around with the machines because
bathroom, and Robin just said, "Well, nobody will know." Yeah.
Robin, did you set the device to my exact specifications? Oh yeah.
Listen, Batman did exactly what you told me. I swear to God, I did not mess with them.
I did not turn the dial too far to the right. I promise.
I promise. And Batman is just like, he says, well, let's just ease out the back door. And
you know what I love here is when they're opening how long it takes them to open the damn windows.
Yeah, because it's got an old-fashioned crank.
Yes, they gotta crank it open.
And Commissioner Gordon, everybody, they're not looking at Batman and Robin saying, what did y'all do? They're looking at the World Council members, and Batman and Robin, they throw the ropes out the window and they just quietly slide down. Oh man, that's such good fun.
Yeah. And then and also, like you mentioned, the idea of them is going out conspicuously while they're in broad daylight in these bright satin capes, walking down the side of the most famous building in the world.
And see, that's another thing about this movie. there is only one scene that takes place at night. Batman is usually associated with the nighttime.
Yeah.
But there is only one scene that this is a Batman that operates mostly during the daylight hours.
Oh yeah.
You know, he's flying around in the hell. There's a part where they're in the Batcopter, and these 4 cops, you know, they look up and they see and they take off their hats. And,
Yeah.
you know, they hold over the, you know, and there's a guy that's in the park with his wife, and he says, "Oh, it gives the guy a good feeling to know that they're out there doing their job."
Mhm.
So this is a very public, you know, Batman. I mean, everybody knows. Well, you know, that's Batman.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah. Which makes even though we know it's Catwoman posing as her, like it makes Kitka seem all the more realistic because she comes from a foreign country and she's like, "What is wrong with you, fucking capitalists?"
Yeah, you know, this guy's running around in a costume dressed as a bat, and you let him, you know, be a lawman.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, seriously, what's going on? And this is probably. Well, this is Los Angeles standing in for Gotham City.
Mm.
And as a result, this is the most sunlit, cheery Gotham City we've ever seen portrayed on film.
Well, in the beginning, when they're in the Batcopter, right? They're flying over one of those buildings. There's a rooftop pool, and all these women in bikinis are waving at them.
Yeah, and there's a guy that looks suspiciously a lot. I know it's not him, but it looks suspiciously a lot like Jack LaLanne.
No, it is him.
That is Jack LaLanne?
Yeah, that's him.
Oh,
yeah.
my God. Okay.
This was, he had a it was a cameo he had in this.
Oh, okay.
And also, do you know who did the voice of the president?
No.
Van Williams.
Ah, the Green Hornet.
Yeah. Van Williams did the voice of the president.
You know, I've seen this movie maybe like a dozen times, and every time I see that part, I always say, "Man, that guy looks a lot like Jack LaLanne." But I figured, nah, that's not him. You know.
No, that's him. Yeah.
Oh, okay. See, cool.
Okay. Is there anything else we have to say about this movie? I think we kind of pretty much covered most of it.
Yeah. I mean, we covered most of it. I mean, we hit the high points. Again, for those of you that weren't paying attention, for me, the high point of this movie, pay attention to the performance of Adam West as Batman and as Bruce Wayne. He does a lot. He does a lot in this movie. He gets to do a lot of stuff he didn't get to do in the TV series. And I think it shows in his performance in this movie. He's obviously enjoying himself, during the fight scenes, during the romantic scenes with Lee Merriweather.
Yeah.
You know, I really enjoy his performance a lot in this movie.
Yeah.
Frank Gorshin.
Frank Gorshin is amazing in this.
He steals this movie. And every scene he's in, pay attention, because he does something amazing in this movie every time. And for me, and I think that in a way that's, you know what? Yeah, Jim Carrey tried, but so far, no. Frank Gorshin is the definitive Riddler. And unless we figure out a way to get a time machine and go back and get him, or to take his DNA and clone him, it's going to be hard-pressed to find somebody who defined the role the way that he does.
I think if Warner Brothers hadn't been such petty little shits and they had given the role to Robin Williams, I think he probably would have redefined the role.
Oh, yeah. I mean, Robin Williams is the only one that I could see matching the manic intensity that Frank Gorshin had.
And unlike, and he wouldn't have done the Jim Carrey thing where he tries to do like a Frank Gorshin imitation. Like Robin Williams would have made it his own thing.
Yeah, exactly. He would have played his own character. And don't get me wrong, I like Jim Carrey and I love Tommy Lee Jones, but the two of them were so horribly miscast in that movie. And they were such a disappointment in that movie.
Absolutely. Agreed totally. Yeah. All right.
But those two performances stand out for it. Again, I love the fact that they actually crafted a story that was big enough to justify the running time and having the 4 major Batman villains in this movie. You know, this actually does feel like a movie. It does not feel like just a 90-minute episode of the TV series. They put in a little bit of money. We get to see stuff like the Bat Boat, the Bat Copter. We have some other locations. We get to see a little bit more Wayne Manor than we don't see in the TV series. So yeah, this feels like an actual honest to Bob Kane Batman movie.
Also something else I just when you mentioned the vehicles, I was thinking the Bat Cycle. And
yeah, when they're right, yeah.
You know what the thing I thought was funny, that when they're going to the Bat-Copter in the Bat Cycle, and then they're approaching the Bat-Copter, and then Batman's like detached the sidecar, and it just rolls around for like 5 feet, and then they get off it and get in the Bat-Copter.
Yeah, so it goes to Robin's side of it, yeah. I mean, I always thought that it's supposed to have its own little control so that when it separates, Robin can run it by itself.
Well, I think it is, because but I think it was just so, and I think that's why they did that, just to show that it could.
Yeah, right, exactly. Said, well, you know what? We spent the money. I mean, building the daggone thing. Why not, show what it can do?
Yeah.
And of course, later on, they used it, or else they just used clips from this movie.
Oh yeah, a lot of the Bat Cycle stuff was just recycled clips from this movie, because they didn't have the budget to reuse any of those vehicles.
Yeah, well, you know what? They spend it for the movie. And like I said, I appreciate the fact that they did it because it made Batman's world a little bit larger. Like you said earlier, when they go to the airport, and apparently Batman has a crew to watch his, shit. His Batcopter. He's got a crew there, which you never would think of. You say, oh, wow. Because, like you said, in the comics and in the movies, Batman keeps everything in his cave. It kind of opens up things a little bit more. But again, it goes back to the notion that this is a more public, more accessible Batman,
right?
Than than the Batman that we've seen in recent movies. So yeah, I mean, why not? He keeps his, Batcopter in the airport, and he keeps the Bat Boat at a dock, and he keeps the Bat Cycle in under a shrub by the road. And
yeah.
For whatever reason, don't ask me why. He's Batman.
Yeah.
That's how we explain away everything in this movie, folks. He's Batman.
Yeah. So yeah, in summary, like it is campy, but that's part of the fun of it. This is not like your comic book Batman, not from like the modern comic books, but it's still a lot of fun.
And since for all intents and purposes, there is not going to be a summer movie season at your local theater. I guess it appears that that's dead. Although I have heard that Christopher Nolan's Tenet is going to be released in the theaters this summer.
Yeah. Oh, you know what else too is my girlfriend saw that because here they're starting to open stuff up because we didn't get hit that hard. And as she was leaving from work the other day, she passed by the theater, and for their reopening, they're showing some Marvel movies. They're showing like Black Panther on the big screen. They're showing Guardians of the Galaxy on the big screen. Some other stuff too, like some I think there were some Disney movies as well. They're showing up on there. So they're bringing back these movies, like re-showing them to try and get people to come back for like the grand reopening.
Yeah, well, listen, I'm having my summer movie season at home. I've got a whole bunch of Blu-rays and DVDs that are still in the wrapper. I haven't even opened them yet. So now,
I've got and plus like this month especially, I've got a bunch of people who are doing Japan on Film episodes with me. So I'm going to be like recording like nonstop watching Japanese movies this month.
Yeah. So my summer movie season is going to be at home. And for you listening, if you're going to have a summer movie season at home, I can think of no better movie than to kick it off than with the 1966 Batman. Especially if you got kids.
Oh, yeah.
If you got kids, sit down and watch this movie with them. You'll love it and they'll love it.
Absolutely, yeah. Okay, so now we're going back to me for the next one. Yep. And I thought...
Here we go.
I thought because,
with devious so-and-so you.
No, it's nothing like that. But I was thinking that with everything that's going on right now, like, it's good to have something that makes you laugh. And also, Father's Day is coming up. And so I thought I'd pick a movie that meant a lot to both of us that we've talked about with our relationships with our fathers. and that's Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2.
Oh, okay, cool.
So that because it's a feel good movie. I think everyone could probably use something to feel good about right now. And you and I, we both talked about like this movie brings up memories of our fathers. So I think, and with Father's Day coming up, I think it is kind of like the perfect movie for this month.
Okay, yeah, good. Listen, good enough.
All right. So that about does it for us. Head on over to Facebook. You can join our group, Superhero Cinephiles. A lot of activity going on over there. A lot of people posting up superhero movie news. Derek posts up his reviews. We do occasional polls and that kind of stuff. A lot of fun stuff going on over there.
Lot of chatter going on now about the whole Batwoman recasting thing.
Yeah, that's such a weird thing. Like where they decided they're going to, instead of recasting her, they're going to create a brand new character to become Batwoman, which I think is just really. I'm hoping it's just like some sort of rumor or something, and it's not real. But who knows?
Okay, here's the thing, Perry. This is what I don't understand. It's not like the woman was doing the role for like 5 years or something like that. Then I could see, okay, well, we're going to do that. We're going to bring in a new character. It's only one season.
And it's not like she's defined the role in a way that like Robert Downey Jr. defined Tony Stark or Chris Evans defined Captain America.
Exactly.
Like, it's nothing against her. I've only seen I saw the pilot, and then I saw her in the Elseworlds crossover and Crisis, and there's nothing bad about her performance. She does a really good job, but there's nothing, groundbreaking about it either.
Right. That's the only thing I've seen her into. I saw the pilot episode, and I saw her in the crossover, and then I said, I liked her, but all I'm saying is, that, it's only been one season that she's been in.
Yeah.
It's not like, this was not like a career-defining thing where we can say, oh, yeah, well, only Ruby Rose can, she's Batwoman,
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
I mean, because whoever they bring in is probably going to be with the show for longer than she is.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the person we're probably all going to remember as Batwoman if she stays with it. So me personally, I'm not a big fan of having to explain, okay, well, now we got to explain why this role is now played by a different actor. No, just recast and just go on.
Look at the Batman TV show we've been talking, right? You had Julie Newmar in the first 2 seasons, then Lee Merriweather in the movie, and then they get a black woman to play her in the 3rd season with Eartha Kitt.
Yeah, I posted that up on the group today. Okay, the TV show gave us 3 Catwomen and never explained why they were all different women.
Even changed the race, and nobody batted an eye.
And Batman and Robin treated her just like she was the other Catwomen.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's what? It's not that deep. Just get a new actor and say, okay, well, let's go on and And I had said in my other group that one of the things I appreciated about the Mad Max movie, the last one we had, the Fury Road, that George Miller didn't waste a lot of time trying to explain why Mad Max is now Tom Hardy.
Exactly. Also, Iron Man 2 did the same thing with Rhodey, right? Iron Man 2, he walks in, he's like, Rhodey? He turns around, he looks, and it's Don Cheadle walks in, and Tony Stark stands up, and it's almost like a meta moment where Tony Stark's like, the look on Downey's face, like, wait, you're not the Rhodey I remember. And then Don Cheadle gives this very meta line, look, I'm here, it's done with, let's just move on.
Right, exactly. It's like the James Bond thing when George Lazenby, when he took over, he has that terrific line where he says, well, this never happened to the other guy. And that's the only thing they do to acknowledge that he's a new guy. And then, okay, let's go.
Yeah. And that's all you need.
That's a nice little, wink to the audience. You say, well, this never happened to the other guy, which I love.
I don't know. There's something, audiences these days, they want everything over-explained. And I just don't see why. Like, well, how can that be the same guy? They're obviously two different actors. Well, it's like, use some suspension of disbelief, you fuckers. You got an imagination, don't you?
Which I don't understand. We've had like a dozen guys play Tarzan.
Yeah.
It's Tarzan. It's okay. It's the same guy. It's just different actors, but it's the same guy. So, I don't see what's so hard about that concept. Whereas when you have a different actor come in, you feel it necessary. You have to explain why this different actor is now playing the role. That's not how they did it in Hollywood in the old days when they had a movie series and one actor decided he wanted to leave for whatever reason was. You know, there's that saying, one monkey don't stop no show. They just hired a different actor. Okay.
Well, Adam West wrote in his biography that, you know, he asked for more money for them to do this movie, and the studio flat up told him, we can always hire another actor.
Bingo, yeah. Because who was it? Lyle Wagner from the Carol Burnett show. He was this close. I'm holding two fingers together. He was this close to playing Batman.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. He tried out for the role, and, you know, they liked him and everything like that, you know. Because they were considering, you know, a couple of guys.
Yeah.
You know, for this to have to be. Yeah, but that's what they did back in the old days. If somebody acted up, or, you know, they started acting like a diva, they just simply said, you know what, we'll just hire somebody else. Yeah. You don't have to put up with your bullshit. We'll just, yeah.
All right. So, kind of got back on track a little bit there, but yeah, back to finishing up the show. That pretty much about does it. The only other thing to add is that I got a new book that just came out. I mentioned it last week, but it's now live on Amazon. It's called Ronin Born. It's a cyberpunk superhero novel set in futuristic Japan. So that just came out. We're recording this on Thursday here. Basically, it came out like yesterday, 2 days ago. So
congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. Head on over to Amazon. You can pick that up. I don't know if I posted a link to it in the group, but I'll probably go and do that once I finish up here.
Do so, and I heartily encourage all of you. I haven't read it yet, but having read Perry's other stuff, I have no doubt that it's up to his usual standards of high adventure, exciting characters, and clear, concise writing.
Well, thank you. Hopefully, I hope it does. So. But yeah, that about does it for us. Come join us next week. We'll be talking about Guardians of the Galaxy. And also, if you're someone going out there protesting what happened to George Floyd, what's going on right now, you know, all my encouragement for you, just be careful out there. There's a lot of fuckery going on, as we say.
Yeah, be careful, be safe, watch what you're doing, you know, and
if you're one of these assholes who's trying to intentionally cause trouble, fuck you.
Oh, well, we got nothing for you.
Yeah.
You know? We got nothing for you.
You can just stop listening then.
Yeah, stop. Yeah, don't listen to us no more. You go someplace and you fall off a cliff and die.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's how we attract listeners here. We tell them to go fuck off and die.
Yeah. Hey, it's a beautiful world.
Okay, thanks so much, and we'll talk to you next time.
Okay, good night. God bless. Stay safe.
Thanks for listening to the Superhero Cinephiles podcast. If you have any questions or comments about this or any other episode, or if you have a superhero movie or TV show you'd like us to cover in a future episode, you can email us at superherocinephiles@gmail.com, or you can also visit us on the web at superherocinephiles.com. If you like what you hear, leave us a review wherever you get your podcasts. Each review helps us reach more potential listeners. You can also support the show by renting or purchasing the movies discussed, or by picking up our books, all of which can be accessed through the website, as well as find links to our social media presences. The theme music for this show is a shortened version of Superhero Showdown, a royalty-free piece of music courtesy of BesleonStudios.com.